Hello everyone, this is Mr. Mathis again. We're on 3.5 string operators on Python Codehs. So we're doing introduce yourself part 2. Okay, so what does Codehs want us to do? They want us to store a variable, store another variable called age, and print a one-liner that includes your name and your age, and this is the one-liner. Remember, we're not using input, we're just using just straight variables that do not change. Now, um, okay, let's create the two variables, name, age, okay? I'm gonna put my name, Mathis, and I'm gonna put the age I would like to be 21. Okay, so now we have to print, okay? So let's remember, if you're not sure, always go to the documentation. Documentation, then put output printing. This is what you wanna, the documentation is your best friend when you're coding. It's there to help you, so always use it, okay? So what we're doing is combining strings with variables. Just like this, we're combining strings with variables. Okay, so we're using a plus sign to combine strings. Remember, you cannot combine an integer or a float, so you always have to wrap that around a string so Python thinks you're printing a string here. All right, so let's make sure we print. Okay, so let's print. Okay, so we have the first part is my name is. Now we have to enter, make sure you leave a space, okay, because we want that space included in our output. Now we're adding our variable name, okay. We're using that plus sign to make sure we're combining strings and variables. And I am. Okay, make sure you're leaving space before and after this string. Okay, now we want to put in our variable age. Now, we forgot the plus sign. Now remember, we just can't put in a number, an integer, or float. We have to make Python think it's a string for this code to work. Okay, quotations, blank, years old. Okay, so let's check our code. Okay, good. Let's output it. Good. My name is Mathis. I'm 21 years old. All right, good job. Let's move on. Okay, rectangle part 2. Okay, so let's look at the assignment. All right, so last lesson, we actually are, if you remember, we actually did the formulas for area and perimeter. So I'm just going to go back to that lesson. It was here, I think. Yeah, it was here. Just going to go back and just copy the code that I did for this one. Save us some time. Copy, paste. Now let's go back to 3.5, rectangle part 2. Okay, so since we're continuation, we're copying the same code that you did before. Now, what would they like us to do? Now, same code, but instead of our output being this, instead of our output just being 50-30, they want to write perimeter or area and perimeter right in front of it. So how do we change this? Okay, so I'll just comment this out, okay, because that's what, we don't want Python to run that. So let's print, okay, print parentheses. What do we want the first thing to say? Area, right? What do we want our second line to say? Oops. Now what, okay, let's copy, paste. Now we want our second line to say perimeter, okay? Now we want to combine this with a variable for both of them, right? Now we want to combine this with area. We want to combine this with perimeter, okay? So remember, we want to combine this with area. We want to combine this with perimeter. Now remember, Python does not combine a string with a number, integer, or a float or a decimal. We have to make this some sort of string. We have to make this a string, I should say. So we have to wrap this around a string variable for this to work. Okay, so let's see, let's test it. We have to, good, we got all green checks. And just so you can see it, it matches what the assignment wants us to do. All right, so good job. Okay, rectangle part 3. Now, what does Codehs want us to do? They want us to take the code from the last session, change it so it's actually user input. So we want the user to actually enter 10 and 5. So let's actually go back. Let's go back. And we're going to actually just copy and paste the same code that we wrote. Okay, let's go to part 3. Okay, so what is the difference between part 2 and part 3? Like we said, we want the user to actually input this. So remember, if we can't remember documentation, input, output, user input, we're doing something like this. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're living in this box. This will be your best friend to help you get through these coding assignments. Okay, so let's erase this 10. Let's erase this 5. We want the input, we want the user to actually input what is the length and then we want the user to actually input the same thing, but what is the width, right? Okay, good. Now remember, we want Python to know that this is an integer or a float, okay? We're gonna put, let's see if they make it clear. Okay, you'll need to make sure you use the int method. So we're gonna use the int, okay, to wrap it around, int to wrap around the entire thing. And now this should give us, we could just erase that because we don't need that anymore. Let's test this out. Okay, good. Just to be clear, the reason why we're making this an integer, Python does not do mathematical operations on strings. You will get an error here if you don't put the integer or a float here. So again, if you want to do mathematical operations, adding, subtracting, dividing, whatever, multiplying, you must turn it into an integer. All right, good job.